you've chosen to be a business owner. Along with that, regardless of how stable, organized, whatever you are, there are things that are going to come up. The premise of business is that there is uncertainty, right? There are challenges, that you're not just going to a job every single day, your pay is guaranteed, you do your things, and everything is happy, you go home, you switch off. That's not the reality for business owners. The reality is that you are going to be challenged, that you are going to have something go wrong, and unforeseen things, like no matter how, I consider myself to be a pretty organized person, right? And there are things that happen all the time that I just would never have thought of, that go wrong. So you need to have things in place that help you to be able to deal with that level of uncertainty and stress.
Hello, my loves, and welcome to Create Your Life. My name is Simone Leah, and I am your host. And I am so excited to be here with you guys today because today I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Anthea Stevanovic. Now, this interview was unlike any others that I've ever done. You guys know to expect soul-led business content from me, but Anthea's story is just so inspiring and so amazing that we just had to talk about it. We just had to share. So Anthea owns 3 businesses. She also renovates and flips properties. And she's also had some life stuff, there's been a couple of near-death experiences for her. There's been chronic health issues. And so today's interview was all about how to build that resilience in life and in business when you're building an empire. How do you keep going? How do you get up every day and just keep going? And so the first part of the interview is just amazing, where Anthea shares the businesses she's got. And that alone is so inspiring, to hear her having 3 businesses while renovating property. And then to actually have her delve deeper into what she's been through in her life and hear her outlook, hear the way she balances her life, hear the way she keeps on track, is just so incredibly inspiring. And I really recommend any business owner to listen to this, because not only do you have so much gold and so much value as a business owner from what she's saying, and her experience with multiple businesses and also renovating and investing, you've also got the whole aspect of how she's stayed moving forward through such an eventful life, such an adventure that she's had. And so this interview is literally mind-blowing, guys. I really recommend it. It's one that I think is definitely one of the best I've ever done, because the level of openness and transparency that Anthea shares is just, it's inspiring. She's an inspiration. So I really hope you guys enjoy this interview today, and I hope you get a lot out of it. And I hope you guys choose to connect with Anthea, because she is such a phenomenal human and such an inspiration. I hope you guys enjoy this one. Hello, my loves, and welcome to Create Your Life. My name is Simone Leah, and I am so excited to be here today, because today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Anthea Stevanovic, who is a multiple CEO and director of lots of companies. So it's lovely to have you here today, Anthea. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you, Simone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for our chat.
Oh, it's going to be the best chat. Guys, Anthea has a lot of different companies. And so the reason I wanted to talk to her is because we wanted to talk about the subject of building resilience in life and in business when you are that entrepreneur who's building an empire. So it's going to be a phenomenal chat today. But I wanted to start with the usual question of, what does creating a life you love look like to you?
That's actually a really good question. And it's really interesting, because when I actually started my first business 8 years ago, I think it is now, it was really led from a place of me wanting to create, I guess, space in my life. At that time, there were a couple of things that were happening. I was made redundant from a job that I thought I would have for my entire life, a company that I thought I would work with forever. Um, and so I had no intention of going out on my own. Um, and then also I was experiencing a lot of health issues. And so when I decided to start my first business, and I had done a few other things kind of in the background alongside working pretty much forever, but when I started that first business, it was really to create my ideal life. And I kind of didn't really know what that looked like, and it's changed over the years. But I guess for me, when I started the first business, it was to create space for me to be able to manage my health as well as to be a productive member of society and to be able to do something that I was really passionate about. Um, Over the years, that's kind of changed and really, I have 3 different businesses, so not lots, but enough to keep me busy. And having those, they all help me to serve my purpose. And I think if you're creating a life that you love, everything really has to be in alignment. There's no kind of room to do something that doesn't align with you and doesn't light you up and doesn't make you want to get out of bed every day and run and do these things. So um, yeah, it's for me, it's about everything being in alignment with my purpose and about having the time and the space to also concentrate on all areas of my life. It's not just business, it's not just my family, it's not just my health. It's being able to contribute to all areas of my life equally.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I'm even so excited to even dive into whether the time you put into each business is equal or just the energy. But that we will start at the beginning because your three businesses are quite different. So just give the audience a quick rundown if you can on your three businesses.
Sure. So the first business that I started, I'm a business consultant. So I help companies to organize, to structure, to get their strategy in place. It's very kind of logical and very systemized. I implement a management system. So I actually developed a management system that I implement into businesses to help them to run the business. I create a company structure. I document all their roles and the workflows and the policies and procedures so everyone knows what they're doing, what's expected of them. So it's very structured, but the reason that I do that is because I believe that business owners uh, can contribute a lot to society. And if they have a business that is thriving, that is doing well, they're able to contribute. And for me, that is the most important thing, that everyone is living a life that they love. And most small to medium business owners don't have that in their life. They get to a point in their business, this is usually when they call me, and they're really super tired, they're really stressed, their relationships are suffering, their health is suffering. And so by implementing the structure and getting the business right, we're then able to focus on all the other areas of their life. So that's the first one. The second thing that I do is that I opened a wellness retreat in northern New South Wales with my family. We launched that last year. Um, and it has a you'll see a theme, even though I do and different things, they're very different. There is a kind of overarching theme. So the wellness retreat is really centered around giving people a place to come to focus on themselves, to reconnect with themselves, also to show people maybe a different way of living, that there is room in your life for everything. There is room in your life to look after yourself. Also to take responsibility for yourself. I find, and this is definitely something that happened during my health journey, is that the way that a lot of the systems are set up, they're set up in a way that's quite disempowering. And I really, for me, I want to empower people to be able to look after themselves, to try different things, to essentially work out what is best for them and their life, and to implement that. So that's the health retreat. Ultimately, it's about having people thriving in their lives, having people doing really well. Um, and the last thing that I do is that I have, with a business partner, we have a networking group. And it's a little bit different to other networking groups in the fact that it's called Conscious Business Connections. It's around connecting business owners that are wanting to do something bigger than just make money in their business. They're wanting to positively contribute to society. They're wanting to help people. They have very distinct values that align with our values, the values of the group. And it's really about helping each other to build our businesses and to do it in a way that feels really good, that is around authentic relationships and around really wanting to see everyone around you doing really well. Yeah,
No,
so
I love
that's
all
kind of
this.
it in a nutshell.
No, I love all this. And I know from like previous conversations and stuff like that, you also flip properties as well.
Yeah, so I started that. I think my first property when I was 19. So it was my family home, the home that my siblings and my mum moved to after my parents divorced. And um, the situation wasn't that great after my parents divorced. Um, we didn't have a lot of money. My dad didn't really contribute at all. We had to move quite far from where we grew up, and the house was kind of falling apart around us, and we're also kind of in a position where we may lose the house. And so I was 19, and I proposed to my mum that she should let me renovate it, and we would sell it and ideally make a profit. In my eyes, at that point, we couldn't sell it the way it was. It was kind of falling apart. And we were kind of backed into a corner, in the sense of, if we did sell, we would have probably lost money on it. And it would have meant that my siblings and I and my mum wouldn't have anywhere to live, but also that it would really be us taking a really big step backwards. So my now husband, then boyfriend, and I renovated it, and it took us a year. We took a loan from my grandma for like $20,000. It was really crazy, like it's such a small amount. And we totally renovated the house. And we sold it. It taught us a lot. In the meantime, I actually bought my first house during that, and we moved into that so that we could renovate. And then it kind of started from there. We then renovated that house. We sold that house. My husband and I bought an apartment that we renovated. We sold. Um, my mum bought an apartment that we renovated and sold. And then my husband and I bought a few investment properties. We renovated one of them. We held them, and we're actually just now, I think it's 6 years later, we're about to sell two of them. I'm probably going to need to do another renovation before we sell. And then also when we moved, so we moved from Sydney to northern New South Wales, and we're on 20 acres. There was a wellness retreat on here already, but it was very, very old. So it was built in the late 80s. It hadn't been touched since then. So last year um, was the biggest renovation that I did, which was 7 bedrooms, 9 bathroom, commercial kitchen, dining room, workshop space, treatment rooms. So we did that renovation. We actually did that renovation in about 7 months. Um, so so I'm I'm a bit crazy. I'm known for doing things very, very quickly. Um, but yeah, we did that one. And I've also, to move here, we actually renovated my grandmother's house, which we inherited, and sold that. So I've done two renovations in under 2 years more recently.
See, that's phenomenal. This is why I'm like, oh, this is going to be, you're the perfect person to talk about, building an empire. And the reason why, thank you for sharing all that, firstly. Like, that's
Okay.
obviously phenomenal. And also, love your love story.
We're celebrating 20 years next year, which I don't know how I feel about that because I feel very, very old. Um,
Oh, no, that's phenomenal and so
to say 20 years.
beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. It is
Oh,
beautiful. Yeah.
congratulations. 20 year is such a milestone. Like, I can't wait to get to 20 years. So I love that. But the reason why we wanted to talk about resilience today is because you've also had some other stuff going on in your life while you've been building your empire. You've got the three businesses, you've been renovating houses, but what else has been going on for you in this time?
Yeah, so for me, I guess it's probably not even the biggest thing. Like I've experienced a lot. I'm actually writing a chapter in a book right now, and I was doing it just before this. And I was kind of one of the things that I was talking about is all the different things that I've experienced in my life. And I think everyone has things that they experience and it shapes who they are. I guess for me, the two biggest things were my parents a divorce. It was a domestic violence situation. I grew up in a pretty um, kind of in an environment that was very tumultuous, that was not great. After that, uh, because of my dad not contributing, my parents actually had a business together, which my mum then wasn't a part of after. So she never really had a job outside of the home. So it was very difficult for her to get a job, and also her salary was super, super low. I think she was earning like $19,000 a year in the first job she had, which wasn't that long ago, and she had three kids to raise. So I actually started working when I was 13. And I started working at McDonald's when I was 13. I became a manager when I was 15. And then my career kind of progressed from there. I ran a retail store when I was 18 and quadrupled our turnover in the first 12 months of running that store. Um, so I've been able to do a lot in my life, but it's been because of, I guess, because of the circumstances. But alongside that, I've always had a lot of chronic health issues, and they started from pretty much when I was a baby. I remember growing up and always being sick, but not even just being sick. If I were to get something, I would have it for longer and more intensely than, say, my siblings did. Um, and then as I grew up, I started to experience a lot more intense health struggles. So just as a summary, I have endometriosis, which from my first ever period, it was pretty much hell. And we, you know, we didn't really know. It wasn't something that a lot of people experienced. It wasn't something that a lot of people spoke about when I was, 13, a long time ago. So dealing with that, having to, have time off every month, having to, the pain would get to the point where I would literally pass out. My body would shut down from the pain and I would pass out because it was that intense. And that was pretty much every single month for all of my teen years, my early 20s, even late 20s. It's only been in the last few years that I've been able to get that under control. Um, when I was in my early 20s, I started to experience really intense um, back pain, and then into my legs. And I was going to lots of different doctors. I was having scans. I was doing all of these things. And basically, nobody could tell me why. So they were prescribing me really heavy narcotics, like pretty much any intense drug you can think of, I was prescribed at 18, 19 years old. Um, and I remember questioning the doctors saying, this is not the solution. We need to work out what's wrong with me, because if you're giving me these now, how am I going to operate for the rest of my life? What happens when I'm 30? What happens when I'm 40, 50? If we have no solution and you're giving me these drugs? It didn't make sense to me. Um, the other thing that I was told is that they didn't know what was wrong, but I'd probably end up in a wheelchair, which I thought was the craziest thing I'd ever heard, because there was no way that I was ever going to end up in a wheelchair. It just wasn't something that I would allow to happen to me. Um, so there was kind of that going on in the background. I was going to doctors, specialists, and this is kind of a theme in my life, just trying to get to the bottom of the health issues. They all seemed to be different things, but over the years of doing I've probably done about nearly 15 years of research now for myself, they're all kind of connected. Um, so that was happening. Um, when I was, I think, 20 or 21, I kept getting infections, skin infections that would turn into abscesses, and then would would get really bad for me. But there was this one that I had that I ended up in hospital. I was given intravenous antibiotics. Then I was discharged because they didn't have enough beds. And I wasn't better. I was kept overnight. I was given intravenous antibiotics. I still hadn't improved, but they decided to discharge me. And they asked me to come back for 3 days as an outpatient to continue having intravenous antibiotics. By the third day, I was barely conscious. I didn't know my name. I couldn't speak. I couldn't walk. And my husband and my sister took me to the hospital, and it went from they didn't know what was wrong to very quickly telling my sister that she should call my family for them to say goodbye to me because they thought I was going to die. And they rushed me into emergency surgery. They didn't think I would make it through the surgery, but basically the infection turned septic, and I was suffering from sepsis. And that took over a year to recover from. I was renovating our first property at that time. I was going to uni full time at night, and I was working full time. And so I was doing all of these things. There was a lot that I had a mortgage. Um, there was a lot happening in my life. So I remember probably taking a week, I think maybe a week or 2 weeks off. But then literally still with bandages, going back to work, still going back to uni, continuing with the renovations. Um, so that was quite intense. And then since then, I also have a brain condition that that we only found out recently. But at the end of 2018, I started having seizures. I started having really bad migraines that were lasting like weeks and weeks. I had a migraine that lasted 3 months, and I was diagnosed with this brain condition. But alongside that, I also have a lot of neurological symptoms, which the doctors are not attributing to the brain condition, and also a lot of autoimmune problems. And so the last few years, I've been experiencing episodes of paralysis where basically I become paralyzed either from the waist down or from the neck down. And they started off lasting a few hours. But the worst one that I had was at the start of 2021, in February 2021, and I was totally quadriplegic, so paralyzed from the neck down. It affected my breathing. It affected my internal organs. Like, I was tested afterwards, my lung capacity was tested, and my lung capacity was tapped out at the oldest age, which was above 86 years old. Um, so in 2021, I was fully paralyzed. It lasted for 10 days. So every time I had been paralyzed before, it was for a few hours. And afterwards, I would come out, I would have a lot of neurological symptoms, a lot of pain, a lot of brain fog, a lot of issues being able to function, but eventually it would go away. But this time it lasted for 10 days, and it caused a lot of damage to my body. It caused a lot of damage to my brain. So I had to relearn how to do everything. I had to relearn how to walk, how to feed myself, how to climb stairs or go downstairs. I had to basically anything that I knew, I had to start as a baby. Like, I was literally doing tummy time and building up from there, because as well as being paralyzed, my body lost all of its strength and muscle memory and everything. So it was pretty much I was starting from being a baby again, um, which was a very intense period. Um, Interestingly enough, I had my biggest year in business that year in my consulting business. I hadn't started the other businesses yet. But in my consulting business, I had the biggest year. I've since started the other two businesses. I've done two renovations. I've moved 8 hours away. Um, yeah, it's been a wild ride.
That is amazing. Honestly, like most of the time, as the audience knows, I get people on mostly to talk about business. And so,
Right.
like, I just want to say, firstly, that I really appreciate what you're sharing with us today. I appreciate your journey and your openness because there's so many parts of that where I'm like, wow, that's enough to give up. Like, having to take time out just because of your period every month, that's enough that a lot of people would be like, this is too difficult, and that would stop them because they wouldn't have that momentum to keep going. And then to
Yeah.
also have the family stuff, and then to go in and have the paralysis, which I cannot even imagine, but I'm going to assume it's probably one of the scariest things, to literally have lost control of your body. So I just want to really acknowledge the openness that you have given in sharing with us today. And I just want to say, like, you're amazing. Like, that's such an inspirational story to hear.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's very interesting because I'll say two things. It actually wasn't scary. I have this very unique ability to stay very calm in the face of any adversity, in the face of any challenges. Um, that and also there's kind of something that happens to people when they have a stroke with their brain. Some people have experienced this where they go into this euphoric state, which happened to me. So I was loving life. It was an amazing time. Um, but look, it was there were conversations that I had with myself. Like I remember when my arms came back and I was still fully paralyzed from the waist down, and I was thinking, okay, well, if this is it, I'm ready to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, and this is just what my life looks like now. Um, so I'm very pragmatic as well. So in terms of scary, it wasn't that scary. I actually also had a very big kind of spiritual awakening, and during that time, and I love my life, and I'm still in rehab. I'm still recovering. I still have episodes where my body shuts down, and literally they're kind of like seizure episodes. They're not seizures, but my parts of my body will just shake uncontrollably, and I have no control over my body. And it also then and can trigger a episode of paralysis, or I just can't move for a short period of time. So I'm still kind of all of that. And the biggest lesson I learned was to surrender. When you surrender, when you are so okay with whatever happens, then it's not scary and you're able to deal with it. It's not, when we're resisting, when we're in fear, when we're, resisting anything, it just makes everything so much harder. So that's one thing. The other thing was in 2019, after I had the seizures and my before the paralysis episode started, my body started to shut down, and pretty much every system in my body started to shut down, and I actually thought I was going to die. I started drafting letters to my family, um, and so that they could read after I was gone. I was convinced that I was going to die. I hadn't given up, but I just thought that it was my time. And I feel like once you have been to that point in your life, nothing scares you anymore. There's, I think if you ask most people what is the scariest thing that you can think of happening, it probably is their death, right? That's the thing that most people feel. But I feel like once you've confronted that, there's nothing really that is that scary. Um, So yeah, that's on the fear side. On the other side, about sharing my story, and I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me and allow me to share my story, is that for a very, very long time, I hid every single thing that was happening to me. And nobody knew how hard my life was. Nobody knew that it would, sometimes take me over an hour to get ready. And by the time I got ready to leave the house, I was exhausted. And I'd still go and do a full day client session, or I'd still do the million things that I was doing. And I was really, really inauthentic. And it's something, when you're not totally open and you don't show the world, every part of yourself, it actually inhibits you. And since the reason why I had to start telling people is because I was literally paralyzed and I had no choice but to cancel commitments and to actually tell people what was happening with me. And I became really, really good at over the years, probably, since I became an adult, the last kind of 15 years, I hid. I hid behind a really well put together face of makeup, really, really nice clothes, really nice shoes, and I hid who I was and what I was experiencing. And I had to stop doing that. When I stopped hiding, it was so interesting what happened in my life, because all of a sudden my business did better. All of a sudden, my relationships were deeper. All of a sudden, I was experiencing all of these amazing things in my life because I was allowing that to happen by not hiding who I was. Um, the biggest fear that I had around my sharing what was happening and my business is that people pay me for my brain. People pay me for my intellect. And I thought that if they knew that there was something wrong with my brain, that they wouldn't want to work with me. But the reality is that everything that I've ever experienced in my life, including the paralysis, including the brain damage, including, everything that I struggle with every day just to function, that is what I bring to every single interaction, to every conversation. And it's a part of me. So it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, it's just amazing listening to you talk and hearing that. And then also in the back of my mind going, and she's got three businesses and she's like renovating houses and she's opening like this wellness center. And it's like, yeah, I just listen to you and I'm like, you've just been through so much. And like, I'm looking at you right now and you have so much energy and grace and like life and happiness and joy. And it's like, you haven't let anything that's happened actually stop you from moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we all have our moments. I've definitely had my moments. I remember in my early 20s, literally after I nearly died, and then I got another infection because the hospital stuffed up. They didn't put me on antibiotics after the emergency surgery, and I had this and that happen and that happened. And I remember one day just sitting there going, why me? What the hell, sorry, have I ever done to deserve such a crappy experience? And that was really my viewpoint. And my viewpoint is so different now because I feel, number one, I believe that everything happens for a reason. Everything that you experience in your life, you're meant to experience. And that might be really hard for some people to confront and to even understand, because horrible things happen in life, right? And how can we, how can I sit here and say that the hardest thing that I've experienced, literally not being able to move, how can I say that that is a blessing? But it is, because it's given me so many other things. It's opened so many doors for me. And it's part of my life's journey so that I can do what I'm meant to be doing.
Mhm.
Right. So yeah, it's it is my outlook, but it wasn't always this way. Yeah.
What would you say? Because obviously you have so much resilience and you are just you're keeping moving forward at all times. And obviously there's been a bit of a mental shift in the way you think about things. What would you say is the thing that's kind of gotten you to be able to have that level of resilience and keep going? Was there like a moment where you're just like, you know what, it's a crappy deal, but I've got to keep moving forward? Or was it you just really nurtured yourself over months? Or how did that look for you to build that resilience?
I think in a way I've been very lucky in the sense that I've always been extremely resilient. I've always known who I am. I've always known my purpose here on earth. Since I was 3 years old, I knew my purpose was to help people, was to contribute to this world in a big way. So I feel very blessed and grateful that I've had that in the background to help me. But in saying that, it's also been a very conscious choice, right? At any time, regardless of, having an innate resilience, having an innate knowing, having all of these things, every single day we make a choice. We make a choice to get up, to keep going, to push ourselves, um, or we can make a choice to not do that. And so I'm very conscious that every single day is a gift. It's also an opportunity for me to make choices. It's an opportunity for me to keep going. And every single day I choose that. Um, some days that might look different. Some days that literally looks like me being in bed with my computer with the lights off and the computer turned down, the brightness of the computer turned all the way down so that I can still do something that I need or want to do. But physically I could have given up and said, you know what, today I have the worst migraine. Today I can't move my legs. Today I can't, do this. Let me just lie here. Or I can choose to make the best of that situation.
Mm.
The other thing is around pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. For me, I feel like pretty much every single day of my life, I've done something that's outside of my comfort zone, that stretched me, that's pushed me. I started my business when I was 27, um, as a business consultant. Most of my clients are a lot older than me. Most of my clients have been in business a lot longer than me. Most of my clients have achieved more in their lives than me when I started my business at 27. Or maybe it was actually, I think I was 25 or 26. Anyway, the point is that I thought that people wouldn't listen to me. I thought that these are the backgrounds. I still have these thoughts, of doubt and whatever it is, but I knew that I had something to offer and I knew that I had something very unique. So I pushed myself outside of my comfort zone to create something that I felt was of value to people. Um, but just as easily, you could decide, you know what? Nobody's going to listen to me. I'm too young. I'm too this, and just not do it.
Mm. I absolutely love that. And I just want to go back to it a little bit because I think it's so valuable. A lot of people in my life have always said to me, "You're so happy all the time. Like, why are you so happy? Why are you so kind? Why are you so warm?" And my answer is literally because I decided that that's who I want to be. There are
Mhm.
decisions. I was a weird kid, but there are decisions I made about the sort of person I wanted to be, the sort of adult I wanted to be. And a
Yeah.
lot of people, they kind of go, "Oh, yeah, well, that worked for you. Like, you're obviously a happy person. You've been through nothing, whatever." And that's literally what they think. And so to hear someone who has been through so much to the point where you've literally been like, "I'm about to die," I don't mean that lightly, but you've been through a lot and you're still going, "You know what? I'm making the conscious decision every day to show up. Like, that's my decision. I have control over that. And that's what I'm doing." And I think that that's such a valuable thing because it shows that no matter where you are in life or what you're doing, you're the one who can make that decision. I'm on a rant because I'm so passionate about this. Um, but you're the one who gets to decide, you're the one who gets to decide, okay, I'm going to be a happy person today. Everything might not go my way, but that's what I'm going to do. Or, you know
Yeah.
what, I'm just going to get this most important one thing done, even though I can't do anything else and I just want to lie in bed and cry. I'm going to get this one most important thing done because I can decide that that's who I'm going to be. And I think that that
Mm,
right there is so valuable and important for people to understand and take hold of and be like, this is my life. I've designed it. Who do I want to be?
mm-hmm. 100%. And that's such a beautiful way to be, firstly, and it is a conscious decision, right? Who we are, how we show up, what we achieve is totally up to us. And I get it too. Why are you so happy? Literally, my husband, after the paralysis, probably a few months later, he sat me down and he said, Anthea, I think you need to see a psychologist, speak to somebody, because number one, you're way too happy. And number two, you're handling this way too well. There must be something going on under there because you cannot be handling this as well as you can. And I had to say to him, like, no, this is actually, I'm genuinely, this is how I feel, and genuinely I'm okay. Right. And so I get that a lot. Like, how can you be so happy? How can you be so optimistic? How can you believe that everybody is good? Like, how do you, do you have such a positive outlook? But it's just the way that I am, and it's also the way that I choose to be. See, we can choose to look at the world and look at all of the things wrong with it, and say, you know what, this world is a horrible place, and this is happening and that is happening. Or we can choose to look at the world and see the beauty in it, see the amazing things, see the good, see the, so, and it is a choice. I'd My biggest mission is to help people, and this is something that I really, really wish, and you might get a rant right now from me, but it's that everybody knew exactly how powerful they are, every human being, because every human being can literally control their lives and create the life that they want to have. And I truly, truly believe that. And it doesn't matter for me, it doesn't matter what happens in your life, the circumstances in your life, you can still choose to have a good and positive experience. You can still choose to do the things that you want to do. It all comes from within. Right. And when you truly believe that, when you truly take control and take your power and recognize how powerful you are, then everything that happens, it actually doesn't really matter. Yes, you still have to deal with it. I still had to deal with being in a hospital bed for 10 days and not being able to move, right? But the impact that I allowed that to have on me, the impact that I allowed it to have on my life, to allowed it to have on the things that I was doing, was my choice, right? And everybody has that choice.
I love
Yeah.
that so much. Like, I absolutely 100% totally agree with you. And I wish everybody knew that as well. Like, I wish everybody just knew how powerful they are because it is your perception that's going to decide how you feel in that moment. Are you choosing to let that get to you, or are you choosing to be the happy, vibrant person that you actually want to be? And
Yeah.
I love that even though you went through so much, even while you were going through it, you were still consciously choosing, because you easily could have just gone, you know what, I'm just going to have 10 days where I'm just going to cry it out, but you didn't. You're like, all right, I'll have my moments. I'm going to assume that there were moments that come up and you feel them. And
Of
then you, and
course.
then you, and then you were like, all right, cool. The moment's passed. Now we're moving forward again, deciding who you want to be. So I love that. And you said you did have a spiritual awakening as well. How has that and how has your daily life changed since all of this has happened? Like, what effect has all of this had?
I think I was definitely on that path before for quite a few years. And I think, I can't really explain what happened.
Yeah.
Um, but I I am a different person now. I I you know I have nothing but love in my heart when I look at the world, when I look at people. I'm just filled with so much joy and so much love, and I'm so grateful to be able to do the things that I do every day. You know, it's really funny. I I'll be watching still right now. Be washing the dishes or hanging the clothes on the line, and I'll literally think to myself, "Oh my God, how amazing is it that I get to do this?" Because it wasn't that long ago that I couldn't do this, you know?
Mm.
And so I think the biggest shift has been just how beautiful I s everything is, and how I see the world now. The other thing is fully surrendering to the universe and to what is meant to happen. Um, I'm a very strategic person. It's really funny because there's kind of two very opposite parts to me. On one hand, I'm very strategic, I'm very calculated, I'm very good at organizing, very structured, right? And on the other hand, I'm also very free flowing, very creative, very entrepreneurial. And not many people have those two sides, and they kind of contradict each other, right? And so when I've tapped into that side more, you know, allowed things to flow, allowed trust, having total trust in what is meant to happen, everything kind of opened up. And I believe there's only so much that you can like make happen. Right? Like the structured, the organized, the setting goals, you know, you should still do all of that stuff, but it needs to be balanced with the trust that it will happen and be open to receiving as well. Um, so yeah, I guess yeah, just being more open,
Yeah.
more aligned, has been the biggest shift for me.
No, I love that. And how has like, because I know like you were saying you were doing so much when you were younger and you were here, there, and everywhere. How have you managed to find balance between renovating houses, having companies, having time for yourself and letting your body heal? How have you managed to find that balance?
I think definitely, there has been a shift from when I was younger. It was really out of necessity, like literally work or starve, right? So it was very um much centered around kind of survival, right? And obviously that does not do good things to your nervous system. And there was a very long time that I lived in survival mode. There was a very long time that um you know, that was the motivator. As I've gotten older, as I've created more stability in my life, those things have shifted. Uh, but also prioritizing, knowing all of the different areas in your life, the ones that are important to you, and prioritizing those. I've always exercised. I've always eaten well. I started researching health and wellness after that near death experience. I was in my early 20s. I started doing my own research. I started working out, and it started with food. You know, what is important? What's actually happening to our food? What does that look like? And then choosing the things that I felt were a priority to have balance in my life, implementing them, and then sticking to them. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect all the time, because I'm far from perfect, but knowing what's important to me and what I choose to spend my time on has given balance.
Yep. No, I love that. And I love that you touched on food and exercise as well, because I know in my life, they've definitely been a big thing. I'm like, okay, well, what can I do to be the best version of myself? And that is move my body every day, even if it's just a 30-minute walk at like a slow pace along the beach. Even that
Yeah,
is enough. I'm like, all right, I know I need to get outside. I know I need fresh air. I know I need to move my body. And I know I need to be conscious of what I'm putting into it. And so I
yeah.
love that that's something that you've had an awareness of the whole time you've been going along, and you've made that a priority as well, because I think that that's something that a lot of people miss, and especially business owners too. You get so busy that you forget to eat and exercise, or you're too busy doing something that you're like, I'll go for a walk tomorrow. So I love that you've
Yeah.
had that intention to keep those two things on track as well. If someone was starting to build or trying to build more resilience, things are happening and life just feels really hard. They're building their business, they've got their family, or they've got other stuff going on, they've got health issues. What are three tips you would give them to help them just let go of that overwhelm and build that resilience a bit more so that they can keep moving forward in flow and in ease?
Yeah, this is a good question because it's something I talk to clients about all the time. And it's the fact that you've chosen to be a business owner. Along with that, regardless of how stable, organized, whatever you are, there are things that are going to come up. The premise of business is that there is uncertainty, right? There are challenges that you're not just going to a job every single day, your pay is guaranteed, you do your things and everything is happy, you go home, you switch off. That's not the reality for business owners. The reality is that you are going to be challenged, that you are going to have something go wrong, that you and unforeseen things, like no matter how, I consider myself to be a pretty organized person, right? And there are things that happen all the time that I just would never have thought of that go wrong. So you need to have things in place that help you to be able to deal with that level of uncertainty and stress. You know, uh, most business owners are severely stressed. They don't have mechanisms in place to help their nervous system to process their stress, to deal with that. So that stress builds and builds and builds, right? Add to that money issues, relationship issues, kids, all of these other priorities, right? Getting pulled in different directions, and all of a sudden you have this recipe for for disaster because you're so stressed. And in order to build resilience, we have to do it in in a way that works for us, but we have to put measures in place. It's not like you're just going to wake up tomorrow and say, I want to be resilient, and I'm resilient, right? We have to do these things for ourselves. So whether it's, implementing exercise, whether it's speaking to somebody, whether it's having a coach, whether it's going for a walk, sharing with your loved one what's happening for you, whatever these things are that work for you, only you are going to know, right? So connecting with yourself, knowing yourself is super important. Trialing different things. Like over the years, there have been so many different things that I have tried for my health. Some worked, some didn't work. So the things that didn't work, they get pushed to the side. The things that worked, I incorporate them into my routine, right? And you only, I'm a firm believer that every single person is so different. So you need to find what works for you. So implementing something that is going to help you, whether that's multiple things, whether it's one thing, and then being consistent in actually doing it, right? If we don't look after ourselves, we cannot then look after and commit to all of the responsibilities that we have externally. So you must come first.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that. I love all of that, like all of that advice, guys. Write it all down. Now, what recommendations would you give people for this? Are there any resources that you could recommend for helping people to build that resilience within themselves, for helping them to be okay?
Yeah. Okay. Um, I do a lot of reading, right? And unfortunately, the last few years, an issue that I had was that I couldn't actually focus after the paralysis. So my reading really slowed down. But in general, I love to read. I love to absorb information and lots of different things. So, it might be business books, it might be self-help books, it might be an autobiography, but you take inspiration from lots of different places. So reading positive things that are going to build you up, I think is really important. We are our thoughts, everything that we think, everything that we do, basically we're on autopilot. Our subconscious determines how we behave, right? So everything that you absorb is what's going to dictate how you are, right? So taking in positive things, super important. Um, I'm affiliated with a brilliant company. They're called Genesis. The CEO Ashkan Tashvir, he created this profile. It's called the Being Profile, and it is the most brilliant piece of work in this area that I have seen. Um, you can actually go to their website and organize to do the profile. But if you want to work on yourself, if you want to change the way that you're being, the first step, in my opinion, would be to do the profile, because it has basically gives you a summary of all the most important ways of being and how you relate to them. It gives you a definition of it, and then it gives you the ways that you can improve your relationship with that way of being. And then ultimately, then you can improve in many different areas of your life. Resilience is one of the measures, actually. It's a way of being. And he's also written many books. I think he's on to his fourth book. Um, so that would be a recommendation. It's the Being series. So I think there's a book called Being. Um, Off the top of my head, I can't remember the other books. I'm sure you'll put a link. But yeah, I love the work that they're doing. It's really helped me. It's helped a lot of my clients. A lot of my clients work with them. So I can highly recommend that. Other resources, just tapping into your network and not being afraid to ask for help. A big issue that I had was being okay with asking for and receiving help. And that's something that I really had to overcome, not by choice when the paralysis happened, because all of a sudden I was relying on so many different people for so many things, including going to the toilet. So that was brilliant. But it made me confront the fact that I couldn't
Yeah.
ask for and receive help. So being okay with that, I think most business owners would actually really struggle with asking for help, and they do. So working with a coach, working with a consultant, getting external advice, and not feeling like you have to know every single thing. Like, I'm a big believer in outsourcing. I do not like to do bookkeeping, so I do not do my own bookkeeping, right? And there's no shame in admitting that you don't like something, can't do something, don't know something, and then getting help in those areas.
Oh, I absolutely love that. I literally love that. Guys, I'm going to be linking to this stuff, but I'm also going to be writing down those three things that you just said. No shame in not knowing something, not being able to do something, or asking for help, I think it was. I'll write that down, guys, so you got it as a quick reference. This talk and conversation has been so phenomenal today, Anthea. Like, I can't even put into words how life-changing I think this will be for the audience and for everybody listening. I know we haven't talked too much about the business side, but I feel like there's been so much important information that is internal that people can take away. But if they do want to get in contact with you about the business side of things, where can people find you?
Yeah, so my consulting business is called Intelligent Directions. So my website is just intelligentdirections.com.au. That's where you can see all my different services and get in touch with me. I'm always happy to have a chat with anybody. And I also believe that there are so many coaches and consultants out there. Not everybody is the right fit for every business. So if you are looking for help, it's really important to make sure that the person that you're getting help from is the right fit. But I'm always willing to explore that with people. Yeah.
Amazing. I'll link to that, and I'll also link to the retreat business and the networking group if that's okay.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much.
No problem. So you guys will easily be able to find Anthea and connect with her in any way that you want to, because she's amazing. This has been amazing. So thank you so much for being here today, Anthea.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be able to chat with you, to be able to share my story. And I've really, really enjoyed the conversation. And I really do hope that it's helpful for your listeners as well.